Hi, welcome back to the Frugal Gardener. Using all available space, I've put my geraniums outside in the passageway. So these are all last year's plants that I dug up. They were quite small, but I've kept them, grown them on, and they'll go out again this year. It's been quite a few projects that I've started. This particular container, I've taken out one of the clematis that was growing up the wall. It got a very bad infestation of mealybug and scale in particular. So I've moved that, I've sprayed it and I've moved it. I don't think it likes being in there. I've put some bedding out already, the osteospermum. Do like these, but I would point out that a frost would kill them off or severely check them. Another project that I've done, which I'm really pleased about, is this tub, which I have now turned into a succulent garden. Again, these are not hardy. If we get a late frost, a lot of these we could lose. But I've got plenty of fleece, and the greenhouse with the fleece in has kept most of these. I've only lost about 15-20% of the plants in the greenhouse, but there's been no heat at all in the greenhouse. So these succulents are doing really well, and I'm very pleased with the result of this. I think it's going to be a nice feature. Last year I brought the pot of this tetrapanax in, and I was convinced I'd lost it because the buds on the top just all started disintegrating, and they'd obviously been caught by the frost, and I didn't think it was going to sprout again, but it has. It's coming up really well. The Alstroemeria is in flower. This has flowered all through the winter. We've been bringing in strips of flowers, just pulling them off and bringing them in, using them as cut flower, and already you can see there's masses of flowers coming out, even at this time of year. These have been out for months, so I'm really pleased about that. Lots of things starting to grow in the pots, and I'm really pleased with the overall effect. Grew a lot of tulips in pots this year, just because I managed to get hold of the tulips very cheap, and so I put them in these pots, and they've been magnificent. They've been in flower now for about 4 weeks nearly, and have done very well. A lot of the alpine plants are coming out, the saxifrages and lots of different stuff. It's a good time of year for alpines to grow really well. We've cleared the decking, and we're going to use it more for sitting out in this year rather than having the plants. 1 or 2 plants I potted up. This is the chocolate cosmos. Doesn't do very well over winter on this clay, so I dug it up and put it in a pot and shoved it in the greenhouse, and it's starting to come round now, and I can plant that out in about the middle of May. We should be totally free of frost, hopefully. Now, one of the other big projects that I was going to do, which in the end, when I thought about it, I decided to scrap, and that was this area, which was where the pond was going to go. And I decided that the clematis that was on the wall, avalanche, I've now moved, and I'm going to grow it up the side of this fence. Some of the plants I've had in pots I've taken out, this skimia and this wonderful hydrangea, which I've got to dig into the bed. I've put plenty of manure into the bed because this is solid clay, this bed where the pond was going to go. It's white rank clay, but I've put plenty in there, and hopefully this year and next year putting plenty of compost and humus in there will make the bed viable. I've moved one of the tulips, the newer varieties that I've bought, that I've put in pots. I've taken the ones out of that metal container, the bath at the bottom, which I've turned into a succulent bed. I was very disappointed. They were magnificent when they came out, but when I dug them up, they were all starting to rot. It does seem that the newer varieties don't seem to last well, whereas these red ones that I've got in this bed have now been in here 15, 20 years at least, minimum, if not 25, almost from the time I first started. And they just come up every single year, not a problem whatsoever. So that's really good. Really pleased about that. I moved the Acer, the Japanese maple, and I've put it down here. I'm hoping that it'll do better here because it's in semi-shade along the side of this fence, and they don't like scorching sunlight. The Acers are better off if they can be kept out of really strong sunlight. So hopefully, I'm hoping that there is going to be much better for it. The bluebells, white bells, pink bells are all starting to come up. Did have some really nice white grape hyacinths, which I bought last year, which are now coming up. Well, they're virtually going over now. They've been out in flower now for at least 3 weeks, but they're doing really well. These white bells are doing quite well at the bottom of the garden here, or at the top of the garden there. Some of the things are coming up. Believe it or not, even though we're on the clay, this particular bed is drying out. So I'm having to water it, whereas the rest of the garden is completely sodden. But I put lots of compost in this, and the compost has dried out very quickly. Beautiful white anemone, which I bought last year, which I've put into the bed, and it's doing really well. And I put in this climber, honeysuckle, which has taken off. It was a tiny little plant, but it looks very healthy and is taken off at the moment. This is a cutting of a bottle brush, and I'm hoping it looks as though it might even have some flowers on it, which will be amazing because it's only 2 years old, the cutting. So if it does flower, that'll be a real bonus this year. Some things started growing really well, but they didn't like the frost we had a few weeks ago. Grasses are doing really well, and lots of flower coming out on this prunus. Love the foliage, the dark foliage. Heucheras are doing well. Most of the beds starting to come up. Something I did do this year, which I've semi-explained already, but this is the Gunnera. Again, lovely flowers at the beginning, look like forget-me-nots, but the colour is just so superb. And then you have the wonderful large leaved foliage with that veining and stuff. I've got several varieties I've told you in the past, of that, and it's really amazing. Something that I have done over the winter, growing lots of plants again. These are all cuttings that I've taken over the autumn and the rest of the year. Things are doing really well. I'm very impressed with these are the spray chrysanthemums. I only took these about 4 weeks ago, these cuttings, and they've come up like there's no tomorrow. Absolutely superb. My dahlias have just taken off completely. Considering what time of year it is, again, we're under the trees here, so this is sheltered, so if we do get a frost it's not too bad. The whole of the greenhouse, lots of cuttings and stuff that I've taken. Bought some little plugs of these lobelia, and I potted them on, and come the summer they'll be superb for the garden. The only thing I've had in here was I fleeced all of these. I managed to get hold of some fleece really cheaply, and anything that was tender I've put in here and put a fleece over them. I've taken the fleeces off now, but this is one of the Orcharias, which is a monkey puzzle family. Has survived really well in the winter. I put up these canes and bubble wrap to cover all the alpines and succulents that I grew, and they've all done really well. These are all the cuttings that I took off the large plant that you've just seen in the bath down the bottom. These were all off the top of it, and they've all done so well. These echeverias were all tiny little ones that I took off, and they're all growing really well. My bananas survived the winter so far and is now starting to grow really well. These were tiny little plugs that I bought. As you can see by the size of my hand, they're getting huge. These petunias, Safina, they're all trailers. And again, I took lots of cuttings off these, and the cuttings are doing reasonably well. There they all are. They'll be potted up soon, but they've been doing, everything seems to be doing really well. I've bought some red antirrhinums, which were 20 for about £2.99, I think it was. I've potted them on into small 3-inch pots, and they're forming really lovely plants now. The thing with antirrhinums is they can become quite leggy and never look quite right, but if you keep them cool, pot them on, these will be wonderful plants later in the summer. Most of the these are fuchsias that I lifted, small plants, but they're really getting quite big now. Again, I took cuttings from the geraniums that you saw in the passage. These are all cuttings that were taken off them that have started growing, and they'll all do really well. This was an outdoor fuchsia. I took several cuttings from my son's garden. He's got some lovely varieties of fuchsia in his garden. Everything's doing really well. Lots to do, hardly any space to move. Lots more echeverias down here. These are huge. As you can see from the size of my hand, they're at least 4 to 6 inches across already at the moment. So I'm trying to work out where I'm going to put all these things. But then that's a nice problem to have. With the watering, I don't want it to all seep underneath the bench, so I'll use an old propagating tray that I've got, and that I fill up with water and just can pick up the trays of these all together, the whole tray, and just dunk it in there and leave it for an hour, and that waters it quick and easy. Best way to do a lot of these things. The wonderful begonias that I had last year growing in the hanging baskets on the arch, most of them I've lifted and I've repotted them. I've had literally tripled the amount of begonias that I've had, and are now growing more under the bench. Just so many of them, and they're all doing quite well. They'll be up soon. So that's just caught you up to date. The reason I decided to take the pond out was because I'm not getting any younger. Being in my early 70s, it's they are a lot of upkeep, and I decided in the end that really I want less maintenance than more maintenance, and also we're always conscious of young grandchildren. You have to net these things really, and that spoils the whole appearance of it. So we decided in the end to give that up and use it as a bed. I've got so many plants that I want to plant out that that's what you want to do. Now is a good time to keep an eye on all of these lilies that are coming up, because it won't be long, certainly within the next week or two, especially with the weather being as mild as it is, we're going to start finding lily beetles about. So keep your eye open for them. They're bright red. If you've never seen them before, you'll notice them immediately. Very bright red all over. Make sure you take them off and get rid of them. So that's about it for now. Everything's on the move and looking forward to spring in the garden. So take care for the moment, and we'll come back to you with updates as soon as we find out more. Okay, take care. Bye.